right, welcome to a very special episode of Cosmic Road where we are joined by the one and only Daz Smith. Welcome to the show, Daz.
Hi there, yeah, it's nice to chat to you again.
Yeah, it's so good to talk to you. Of course, Daz is one of the best remote viewers on the planet, part of the future forecasting team, although he also runs his own team. And recently, they had a really intriguing target, one that I've talked a lot about before, the alien interview. A friend of the channel, John Stewart, has done a lot of research on this, and he's really convinced me that we're likely looking at a real alien or non-human in that video. Well, Daz and his team have really kind of put the icing on the cake on that idea for me, and I think for Richard Dolan too, who sat on the panel with you, or on the debriefing, however we're going to call that. What do you call that when you go over the data?
Yeah, a debriefing would probably be the best way to describe it, really. Yeah, sometimes we do it blind, so when we do it there and then on the spot, the viewers see the data or the feedback for the very first time. But in the case of the one we just recorded, I sent them the data or the feedback up front just to prepare them really because it was a bit of a strange one.
Yeah, it is a strange one. One of your remote viewers was even apologizing to you because he was like,
Yeah,
"I'm getting aliens, Daz. What's going on?" But that was the target, and he was
yeah,
getting.
yeah.
Okay, so was that viewing in association with future forecasting, or was that your own group?
No, it was just an ad hoc thing, really. There's a podcaster called Sean Hazlitt. He put
Yeah.
me and John together for the first time on around about 1st of September. John was looking for someone to run a project. Yeah, so we decided to run one together after we went back and forth on what information he actually required and what we could give them as remote viewers to validate it. And I had to go over some of the caveats with him, that without proper feedback that comes back one day, it's only speculative at this stage. And once we did that, I found a team of viewers from my stable of colleagues. Three of the viewers that work this project actually are mentees of mine, so they're students in training. And one of them, Carl, is just a very well-known remote viewer on the circuit.
Very nice. Okay, so this was done under double blind conditions, right?
Yes,
So
yes.
the viewers have no idea what they're viewing.
No,
Can you
all they
tell
had
us
was the
how?
random. They just had the random number that I assigned them. 06099961.
Okay, all right, and like with Brian, he wasn't expecting an alien target, so it's not like they're normally assigned alien targets.
Well, to be honest, two of the viewers, Brian and Susan, because they're in training with me, mentoring. They're in their second year of what I class as advanced mentoring. They haven't actually worked a client based target with me before. It's their very first one.
Okay, okay. Oh, what do they normally do? Yeah, they're just in training.
They're just doing general training targets with me, and as I said, they're in their second year, so they're probably on their around about 130th training target with me. And the ones that we're doing now are more the training targets they're doing in their second year are more client orientated. Um, but they generally aren't esoteric based. There might be one in there because we will get clients because I'm trying to simulate a training scenario for clients for them to put them into the real world. So out of the 10 in the advanced class, they do 10 targets. One of them will be esoteric based, but the other nine won't be. And in my training pool of 125 targets with them, uh, I would say none of them are esoteric targets because there's not much feedback from them, you see. So my training pool is hardcore targets with solid feedback.
And it's what's amazing is the level of corroboration we were getting from a viewer to viewer. They were all seeing, structured craft. They were seeing ETs. They were seeing humans. Some were seeing what looks like a recovery operation.
Yeah.
Others were seeing beings in captivity. It was just amazing, the level of corroboration. But you weren't one of the viewers. You were the tasker, right?
Yeah, because we have to work blind. And John came to me, and for him to tell me what project he needed doing, I had to have information, which invalidated me from being a remote viewer. I was the project manager on this, organizing the tasking and the back and forth between viewers. which is why I went to my stable of colleagues and trainees to get the data on this one.
Now, would you just want to do it for fun? Just as, not as an official project, but just, that's kind of a cool project. Why not view it?
Oh, yeah, well, you can't have it valid if you know what the target is, but one day hopefully it might turn up in, blindly testing me in my training pool, and I'll get to have a my own personal chance to look at this in detail as well, because as a remote viewer, it always helps validate the entire experience if you personally have the experience.
Okay, well, let's go over some of the data. Do you
Yeah.
have it handy? I've got some up, but if you have it, handy, that'd be great.
How do you want me to do? Should I share a screen and show you some of
Yeah,
it?
yeah, let's do it. Yeah, let me make sure you have the ability to share your screen. Yeah. Okay, now you should be able to share your screen.
Okay, let's find the button here. It's all changed.
Yeah, yeah.
Me,
Zoom just
I'm
did an
gonna,
update.
I'm gonna change to my second screen here. Bear with me.
An update with
Okay.
no apparent benefit.
Okay, so yeah, this was the target number 06099961. I'm gonna make this bigger here. That's just links to all the bits and pieces there. But the data itself, well, the tasking for it, as you can see here, the remote viewers were Carl, Dimmy, Susan, and Brian, and I was the tasker. Here's the tasking itself: 06099961. The Alien interview from 1997, the actual filming event itself, and we wanted them to go to the location of the filming, the day, date, and time, and to only get information really on the filming event. And here's the cue. So the viewers don't see any of this, but it's good to get all this down on paper so that when we evaluate it afterwards, we know exactly what we're evaluating the target against. And I did try on this one here to get all tasker intent, rumors, theory, speculation, and social constructs will be ignored, and only the actual physical, real filming event will be described. So I add that to some of my esoteric targets to try to stop the viewer from getting all data that comes from social constructs, myth, and all that kind of stuff. We don't know if that works, but it's good to have that kind of stuff in there anyway. And the kind of data they brought back in summary, we can show some of it later, but Carl got great details of a curve structure or structure and movement, four biologicals inside the structure. Biologicals are involved with data collection, and they seem to have a network of consciousness.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
she also
Okay, let me just pause there. I thought that was really intriguing, and maybe Coral someday can shed some light on that. But yeah, the beings claim to be injected into the network of consciousness.
yeah,
What
yeah.
does that mean?
I don't know. It's one of those things where that if it weren't a client project and if we had more time on it, I would have made the viewers go back even more times to really hone in on the data and get more information. So on this one, I would have probably where that came up in the page. Let's say it was on page 10, for example. I would have then retasked Coral and said, I like your data on page 10. Can you go back in and describe all of page 10's data to me? And then she would have gone back in and done a whole RV session to try to work out what that injected into the network of consciousness would mean.
Now, when she says they claim, was she actually communicating with them?
Well, kind of, but not in real time. As remote viewers, we can kind of question the data, but it's not like having a two-way conversation in real time with with a being at the target. We just have as remote viewers we just have access to all information that's ever happened about that target. It's all there in time and space for us to access.
Okay, okay, keep
Yeah.
going.
So we can answer. It's very easy for a remote viewer to get all the emotions, feelings, thoughts, desires, ideas from any life form, any target in history, just by accessing the this kind of Ethernet of information that we access.
Do you think of it as the Akashic records? How do you think of it?
I think of it, my version of it, from what I've encountered and been told, and kind of yeah, kind of seen over the years, is very much like the Star Wars films. I call it the Force or the Field,
Yeah.
and I truly believe, because I'm a martial artist as well, and I've studied Tai Chi and Qigong. I truly believe there is this living energy force that actually brings us all together. It's a part of every living thing in the universe, and maybe even non-living things as well, because it's a different topic. But I've done RV sessions where I've actually gone into the consciousness of non-living things, and non-living things actually have an embedded consciousness with them as well. And so, I think there's this field or force that exists through everything in the universe. And as remote viewers, I think we're just tapping into that.
Well,
Everything in the universe is entangled.
I do Reiki, and I don't know if you know what Reiki is, hands-on healing, energy healing. Yeah, and you're tapping into chi, you're tapping into the
Yeah.
force, and I felt it, and it's a
Yeah.
real thing. It's a powerful thing.
Well, if you like Reiki and you practice Reiki, you would love a target that Carl, Susan, and myself, and some other people in my other group called Hellfire Club, we recently did a target that was given to us, which was the very first Reiki experience that the master had experienced.
I covered that on the channel, man. That was amazing.
Yeah, we had
That
some
was insane.
really awesome data on that one. Really amazing data.
Loved it, loved it. That was blew my mind. It was
Yeah.
so cool. It was so cool. All right. Continuing with Coral's data.
Yeah, so Carl had lots of stuff. I'm skimming through it here really, but she knew the target was an event. Multiple biologicals. One is smaller, scared, anxious, and uncomfortable. The communication felt difficult with like two different radio stations were static. They were here to plug something into the Grang which would broadcast, which I found interesting. Again, we didn't look at that because it wasn't the mandate at the time. But she said they're thin, bony, flexible, fast, and strong, and the skin is leathery, tough, and thick. They have long arms with three or four jointed shoulders and a backwards thumb and three fingers ending in a pad. Large eyes and a very small vertical mouth with a high downed forehead. She said they claimed not to be predators, and then she went on later to say there's
That's
multiple pairs
encouraging.
involved.
They're not predators.
Yeah, yeah, that's nice to know. But if they were, would they tell us the truth anyway? She also said there were humans huddled around something or in a circle and they're controlling. They respond to a higher power outside, although they're autonomous. And one group has large eyes and heads and wears similar clothing or a dark colored suit. And she said this all feels very Star Wars, but retro and underground. And she also detailed in the video that you've seen that she felt that there was a higher set of beings that were controlling the typical grey type beings that she encountered as well. And the higher beings she kind of said were a bit more angelic, kind of looking, blonde hair, blue eyes kind of scenario on that one.
Yeah, that's what you often get is there's like the puppets and the puppet masters.
Yes, a bit like that. Yeah, absolutely. Dimi have very similar stuff. The target consists of land, biologicals, and structures. There's involvement of a structure in the air, and she had an AOL or a guess that is for us straight off of Vimana, which is like ancient, Indian flying UAP type stuff. The purpose is establishing an agreement between two different parties. One side was human and military, representing a powerful country. And the other side was non-human. There's some deceiving going on. This all revolved around a structure. Two separate meetings. There was one upstairs in the structure and one downstairs, and that's where the focus of the target took place in a hidden space underground.
Do we know if the structure is man-made? Are we talking about the UFO? What any idea
She's
that
talking. I think she draws this in her RV session. She's talking about a man-made square above ground underground structure, which we think is the S4 facility area where the interview takes place. Yeah.
yeah.
She said within the structure there's a central object curved on a platform, so it looks like they retrieved the craft. The biologicals had wrinkly skin, looks old. She also said that it looks like an elephant's skin to her. She said, and she had an AOL guess here that they look like the Strieber aliens. She's talking about Whitley Strieber there from the book Communion and his other books. She also sensed there were uniformed militaristic biologicals and they were, having a negotiation or meeting. One side was human, uniformed, camouflaged, serious, and high ranked, and the other is masked or had intentions that were masked and ugly. She said they moved sluggishly, non human. And she also said feels like a puppet, and that concerned me when I saw that data because I thought, okay, maybe this is a puppet after all. So I did ask her to go back in on that. I said, go back to your page 10 data where you said puppet, and can you describe for me why you say puppet and what that means for you with this data? And there, I was hoping that she would come back over to say that this is, a puppet being moved by people, but she didn't. She came back and said the puppet she was describing was that someone was being manipulated, or the scenario was being manipulated like a puppet on
Okay,
that
and
one.
she is she talking about the beings? She talks about how they have mask intentions and there's some
Yes,
deception going on.
I
Uh,
believe so. Yes, yes.
interesting.
And she said here again an agreement or code exchange in exchange for weapons, tools, or energy. So that's two viewers there talking about an agreement being set upon. Susan had she wasn't in the interview because she lives in Australia, so it's hard to get her in on the time zone. But she had a massive data, really complex data that detailed with the crash retrieval event. And I think I said this in the video. This whole thing quite shocked me in that all viewers were talking about a crash retrieval event because specifically I didn't. That wasn't part of the tasking. The tasking was just the interview only, and it shocked me in that if this were a made up event, people faking something in a room with cameras and a puppet made out of latex or whatever, then I don't know where this crash retrieval data would have come from because in the whole story about this video that's been around since I saw it around about in the mid 90s, 97. um, I have never heard people really speculating about what the crash was, where it happened, and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, that was the stuff that kind of persuaded me that this may be a little bit more real, is the amount of corroborating crash retrieval data that all the viewers came up with, and
Yeah,
Susan was quite heavy on that.
yeah, they were getting a lot more crash retrieval stuff than they were interview stuff.
Yes,
In fact, I
but
don't know, did any of them get any interview specifics?
well, they did in that you know that there was I mean, Brian did. He talked about there being an interrogation taking place of an
Okay.
alien life form,
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
other two were talking about a negotiation between two parties, one human and one non-human. They didn't actually say interrogation, but that's as remote viewers, we try to describe things rather than name things in those scenarios.
Okay. Okay.
But yeah, the crash retrieval stuff, as I said here, Susan got great stuff. So a silvery metallic curved vehicle is involved at the target. This feels like it's nighttime involving the vehicle, and I feel something lost and then appropriated. Data indicates an object not running smoothly and failing, and a sense of something hitting a man made vehicle, a bit like a ricochet. So she's kind of suggesting it may have been shot down. Then she then talks about multiple biologicals converging on the object, moving as a group. And in her data, she talks about them wearing black, moving stealthily, all kinds of great data in there on that one. She said the vehicle has a pilot, and I feel that something has happened to the pilot. The biological wears a uniform, and it feels like it's in a past era. A biological feels fit, well, and assertive, and this is confident in the uniform. I think she's talking about the military people here, intelligent, polite, and smiling. And there's a man-made structure with corridors. So I think here we're talking about the S4 facility. Biologicals work here in all departments, all official, lots of files and records. She also details, and all the viewers detail, that there's this weird sound, hum, or energy, low monotonous hum, an auditory energy here, a repetitive sound like a radar. And I think they were all picking up at that point on, you can see it in the video, there's this very strange, blippy type radar. It looks like it's doing something to the health of the alien or something. I think they were picking up on that because they all mentioned this kind of radar. And she said here it's like green and illuminated as well. And I think that is in the film.
Whitley Strieber actually spoke about that. He said while he was writing Communion, that thing, that blippy green dot appeared like on his desk and was
Wow.
on his desk doing something while he was writing Communion. I
Mhm.
mean, I don't know. I don't know, Daz. I just work here.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I'm just trying to put this together. And I didn't experience it, so I'm the analyst on this one. She details quite a lot of data on a military aspect. Male in uniform, and he had facial hair, brown hair. So she went in depth into what he looked like. She said, "Well, this is happening inside a building. There's a biological with a fine energetic, like a pulsing signal again, a low continuous drone sound. There are bios running across a natural terrain, scrambling to get to somewhere quickly undetected. They're moving from concealed positions, a military team, moving with stealth and closing in on something. So I think this is her on the crash retrieval event there. They're watching for a structure for movement, a recovery. There are biologicals inside. They're cautious, laying low and hiding. And there's biologicals in the group surrounding an important bio, moving and protecting them. They are males wearing black, moving with alertness and urgency. So I think that's when they're getting the bio itself here. Then she had a sense again of of opposing sides pitted against each other, and a scenario like the taking away of a downed pilot and a bio is taken captive. A reference to a fictionary, legendary actual film. So I think she was actually picking up symbolic data there that this was all to do with a film related, as a final part of her data on that one. And then Brian's data. And now Brian, I don't know if we made this clear in the video. I actually picked him to do this target, even though, as I said, he was one of my students that hadn't done client-related work before. But I felt he would be particularly interesting on this one because he does have a background as an experiencer,
Okay, I didn't know
and
that.
I think that acts. I think that allowed him to come up with the really in-depth data he got, but also the really strong emotional connection he had with this target as well.
Yeah, because he had a being like materialized before him, didn't he?
Yes, yes. I mean, maybe it might have been a bit wrong for me to have done that. I was, I was confident myself that he could handle it and stuff, and I think he did handle the situation really well in the end. So
Did he
he
say?
describes,
No,
sorry,
I'm so I'm sorry. Did he say what emotion? Because he said the being was imprinting an emotion on him. Did he?
he got very upset and very emotional at his experience, yeah, during this RV session. It impacted him quite strongly.
Was it like a positive emotion? Was it negative?
No, I think I think he actually, had tears and had a little cry with all this as well. Yeah.
Just very moved by
Yeah, I think he really
something.
picked up on the emotions. I think they all picked up on the because they all detailed it, especially Carl. They all picked up on the emotions of the life form that it was obviously, under some great duress,
Sure.
as as anyone would be if you're captured and taken to a hostile facility and then, asked lots of questions and experimented on.
Sure, and it goes into distress, and John told me that his research indicated that it had expired
Yeah,
shortly
yeah,
after that video was taken.
yeah.
So yeah, very sad, very
So yeah,
tragic.
Brian got great stuff on the an unconventional non-surface structure that floats in the air. It's oval, smooth, and pewter colored. It has an electrical charge that makes your hair stand up, and the environment is dark. So all the viewers said it was night. Possibly more than one object in the air. There's a typical grey alien. Um, this caused very strong emotions within the viewer. He then detailed an alien in captivity, and the alien was sick and resigned to its fate. And unusually, which is perfect for this piece of video footage, he said that the alien was tan brown, smart, advanced, and mission orientated, and the mission was recon, scouting, and surveying. He said it was a lone survivor. It was mad, upset, cornered, and resigned. And they had a feel that a human had also died in this, something to do with a welt, rash, or skin illness.
Hmm.
There's a strong
Okay,
smell of ammonia,
that
and
reminds
all
me
this
of
happened. Go ahead.
Of the Virginia Brazil case
Yes,
where
yes.
somebody came in contact with the being and died as a result of that.
Yeah, if it happened once, then there's possibility that it happened, more than once. And I think weren't they around about the same times as well? They were both in the 90s, weren't they?
Yeah, that's right. And
Yeah.
they were.
As he said all this happened inside a location which is sterile, medical, and he felt like the bio was expiring, sick in despair. And all this stuff I'm reading out now is literally just me summarizing the data. But the summary of the data is all viewers report an event that involved a man-made aerial structure. The aerial structure lands or is brought down and lands. Nighttime seems to be the event time. Military humans surround the craft and retrieve its pilot. All viewers report two different biological types, human and non human. The location is above ground and below ground, and it's a hidden man made structure which is large with a military feel. The non human biological is ill and sick. There's a strange energy and sound that was observed around the non-human, and something about a deal, agreement, or something was discussed or communicated at this event.
Okay, now that is amazing corroboration of all of that. I think that speaks to the quality of your viewers and the information that you were getting, and it seems to suggest this was a real event and they were picking up on something real.
It seems to, but with the caveat, we have to, we always have to be wary of all remote viewing if you don't have 100% solid data, because a remote viewer can get data from anywhere in time and space, as I said, and that does, I'm afraid, include the minds of all the people involved in the project, so the tasker, myself, the client, and all that. So that's why feedback is absolutely important for us to then determine what's real and what's not. In this case, we do have the video, of course, which is a good piece of feedback, and we have a lot more of the data that John's collected since, which adds extra credibility. So I can't actually say that this is a slam dunk case, but in my personal opinion, I think we give so much data which was not known in, and a few other snippets as well, that for me it moves me off the fence. I was 50-50, now I'm a bit more 65-75 in the feeling of this being real. For me now, with all this data in there and what John's added to it over the last few years, for me to be swayed the other way of it being a fake, I would actually have to see a lot more data to prove that it was a fake rather than people coming up with theories.
Yeah, yeah. The burden of proof is on the debunkers now.
Absolutely, yes. And I don't know if you've seen the full report, but underneath the video that I posted on YouTube, people can download this full report. So you can actually, I can skip for it roughly here, just so you can see it. But you can see the remote viewing data. It's a bit arcane if you don't know how to look at people's RV sessions. Some stuff you won't understand what we're putting in because it's how we structure our stuff.
What was
But
that? What was that cat-like being? What was that?
that was some of the sketches that Carl drew of the non-human being. Have you?
Okay.
Did you not see this document?
I didn't. I didn't.
Okay, if you follow
Or
the
else
link
I
on,
forgot.
yeah,
Which is
if you follow the link on the YouTube, it's down at the bottom of the description, so you can download all 100. And that's why we can't go through it. Like, it's 211 pages of raw remote viewing data here,
I
so
think
it's
I would
more than we
remember
can.
that. So I didn't see that.
Yeah, so that's some of Carl's sketches. I can quickly run through some of them. So here's some of her sketches of the
See, that one
non-human.
looks more reptilian.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think it was Coral was getting that there was a reptilian feel.
Yes. Yes.
Now,
And
what's
here.
kind of interesting, or what, one interesting aspect is in the ways that the viewings conflict with each other. Like,
Yes.
one saying gray skin, one saying tan skin,
Yeah.
which I think is what John says it is, more of a tan color.
Yeah.
And some having discrepancies over the purpose of the being's visit.
Yeah.
Some saying, I think Coral, something about they wanted to plant something in the ground or something like that.
Yeah.
And others saying, no, it's more about an agreement. But if it's an agreement, then why are we shooting them down if that's what happened?
Oh, I think they were doing something from the data. It seems like they were doing something else, like surveying and yeah, and watching us. But I think all the agreement detail is, I think maybe the non-human going through some kind of negotiation for its life or something afterwards. I think that's what I think that I don't think they were here for an agreement. I think that came because of the they were downed and then captured
We
kind of.
shot him down and they had to ransom, he had
Yeah,
to ransom
yeah.
his life. Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, if you haven't seen this kind of stuff, so here's some of Dimmy's stuff talking about the actual structure itself, where they were taken to, and here's her drawing the structure and the tunnel system. Something about an object that's inside on a plinth within this structure as well. Something maybe the object was captured. I don't know on that stage. Just going to scan through some of this
That looks really
again.
intriguing.
Her talking about the structure itself. So the S4 facility, I would say, or the S2, I think it is that they took it to. Her sketches of beings that she tried to get here. I'm just literally scanning through, some military people here and what they look like and everything. Let's see who's next. Susan. Susan's talking about the man-made quite a lot here. Susan gets a lot more textual data than sketch data in our RV sessions. So she's talking a lot about pilots here in a vehicle that's man-made. Something's happened to them. Loud noises, silence, all that kind of stuff. Great data. All the stuff I mark in yellow is all the stuff I find highly relevant. So that's me making notes on this. Yeah, just to clarify a few things here. So as I said, Susan gets a lot more. But here's her talking about the radar thing here as well. Um, Repetitive sound. It feels like you're looking down at a radar, which is green illuminated, and so on. But yeah, she gets a lot more word data than picture data in her RV. As you can see, there's lots that match this target. So I'll just scan through all Susan's
And
stuff.
she
As I
got a lot of
said,
data.
yeah, yeah, all the viewers do. They each went back several times, because I sent them back to have a look to try to really hone in on the data. And then we have Brian's data here, and he goes straight off to talking about a hard object straight from the bat. Let's go to his sketches here. There's one of his sketches there of the object itself. Then this is a cross section of the object. Then there's an outside view of the object, looking at it move.
Is that
Then I
its
sent.
erratic movement when it was shot, or is that just how it moves? That
I think he just says fast, zippy, and erratic. So I think this is his normal probably movement, really. Yeah. And then I sent him back to have a look more at the life form. Talk. Even mentions that his guess at this point was, "Oh, this is an alien interview." So he hit the target right on the head there. And here's him talking about the tan, yellowish, brownish. He's trapped, confined. It's a prisoner. It's ill, sick, unhealthy. And then he goes into his great sketches in a minute, because this is the object coming down here in his sketch. And then let me get rid of the yellow box there. There's there's the creature he saw, tan, brown, the lone survivor, and so on. There's it being transported. There's it in the facility. It's let down there, so maybe it's actually after it's expired at that point, because he says here sick, expiring, and with despair. There's his sketch of it again. Again, it's unusual for anyone in these cases to report them being anything other than grey, really. So him having it tan and it being tan in the film is an extra valid data point there. So as you can see that there's literally 200 pages of information, and it was too much for us to go through right now, and it was too much for us to go through in the initial video that we did with Richard Dolan and everyone else. Really, I'm sure someone could take that whole lot of data away, working with the video and working with other stuff, and pull huge amounts more data out of there than we've even looked at, really.
that's amazing. I am so impressed by your team, man. Y'all did such a great job.
They're great viewers, well talented, and maybe my mentoring's helped a little bit along the way.
I'm sure it did. And Richard Dolan seemed very impressed too.
Yeah, that's the second time we've involved him in the project now. I don't know if you saw the first. It was working with Future Forecasting Group with slightly different viewers other than Dimmy, who joined as well on that one. And that was when we tried to validate a day in the life of Bob Lazar when he allegedly claimed to be working at S4. And
You
we
know,
had
I
amazing data on
saw
that.
that, and that seemed to corroborate Bob's story in large
It
degree
did.
too.
It did, and I know these are I know both of those are very controversial, stories and events within ufology. But we got what we got. As I said in my caveat, it looks like the data corroborates, and it looks like it validates the video and some of John's findings. But truly, we won't fully know until one day we get 400% feedback. So yeah, everyone just has to bear that in mind when they're looking at the data. Use it like you should use any other remote viewing, as another data point, but another data point you need to use carefully and with feedback, really.
I know sometimes you use an extra step, like if you're viewing something fictionary or fictional or whatever, you'll see the Buddha statue in my backyard. Uh,
Yes,
yeah,
yeah.
how often do you take that precaution? And can you explain that a little bit?
I've only tried that a couple of times. It's what we call ARV, associative remote viewing. So you associate two targets with two different outcomes. So if you want like if you have a target which is binary, with an outcome like the Trump presidency, for example, will Trump win the presidency? If it's yes, you'll see Trump Towers. If it's no, you'll see the Eiffel Tower, kind of thing. And whatever one the viewer describes, which will be whatever the feedback is for them in the future, then it tells you what the target is. And it's easier to do it that way rather than setting a target which is, describe who's going to win the president and stuff. You're almost trying to take away all the noise and nonsense around that, and try and in a sideways way of trying to get at what the actual outcome's going to be.
Well, okay, so all right,
We do it a lot for markets, to be honest. Yeah, we do it a lot for like gold and silver markets, that kind of thing. Target A is the Eiffel, and so essentially it'd be like two targets, an A and B target. Target A will be the Eiffel Tower if Bitcoin doesn't go down, it doesn't meet its all-time high in 2025, or target B will be the London Eye, the circular one, if Bitcoin does reach its all-time high in 2025.
Which target was the one where if you're looking at something fictional, you'll see the Buddha statue in your backyard?
I think that was the Lazar one. If I said to them in the tasking, if Lazar is there at S4 and the events are real, you will describe them. If they aren't real, you will describe the statue of Buddha that I have in my back garden instead. Yeah.
Now, how onerous would it be to do that on every single tasking, so that you only know if you're looking at real data or not?
We have to be very careful in that many people, including myself, have spent many years playing with this process called ARV. Um, and what you do find some of the time is the mere fact of me and anyone else involved in the project knowing that there are two targets and maybe sometime in the future seeing what both those targets are, it encodes them as part of the target. So sometimes the viewers end up describing a little bit of both targets.
Okay, so you'd see Bob Lazar next to your Buddha statue.
That's quite possible. Yeah, that's quite possible. And that kind of thing happens quite a lot and clouds the accuracy when we're trying to look at things like, sports events or market events and stuff. Sometimes some of the viewers in the project will end up describing both targets at the same time.
Now, why were all the viewers seeing the crash retrieval elements more than they were seeing the viewing,
Well, personally, I think that's
the
because,
interview?
yeah, I think that's because the interview is essentially a small thing, and I say a small, I mean it's a big thing to us, but in the way that remote viewing works, and we know this from the studies done at SRI, on the Stargate project, and Dr. Ed May has written about this and talked about it quite a lot. We know that the targets that attract viewers better than any other targets that are targets that have lots of information, lots of change, lots of entropy, lots of lots of movement, energy, interaction. Do you know what I mean? Lots of energy happening, and a UFO or a UAP flying around, being brought down and crashing, that has a lot more of a luminous effect out there as an attractor to psychics like us than a life form being interviewed in a room, if you know what I mean. Because we're talking about an exotic energy system. God knows what energy it was releasing. So that's very that in the psychic space of us going out into this kind of nothingness to try to pick up data, that would have much more of a glow that it would attract our Venus, and our Venus would go, "Ooh, that's interesting over there," rather than the two people in a room with an alien being thing. Although we did pick up that as well, but I think that's why we picked up, or they picked up, the object event more because it's more of an interesting luminous target, and we find as remote viewers, the more interesting, as you said, the more interesting and moving and big and loud and exciting the target is, the better a target is for a remote viewer.
So, what's the chance that we could get a sequel remote viewing? What happened afterward? Where did the ship go? Is it being reverse engineered? Did they get it to work? Are there some humans flying around in it right
Yeah,
now?
that would be good. And like all of these projects, this one was unfunded, so I'm asking the viewers here to put in quite a few hours each, 10, 12 hours each of work or more without being paid. But for example, if someone wanted to fund a project and you set 5 remote viewers against a project, and bear in mind, you should always use a team as well, never a single viewer, because, you can then gauge the different pieces of information against itself. You would really need to fund a team of remote viewers, and then what you could do is you could then task them to look at all the aspects. So on a project like this, if you had enough funding for them, a few $100s for each remote viewer to spend time on this, you could literally track back the UAP to where it is now. But you could also do other things, and I've done this in various projects myself. You can actually track the UAP to its point of origin and point of construction. So you can take many different routes and get huge amounts of information on many different tangents on a project like that. But as I said, it's like all these things. It's time and time and money, and it's hard to expect remote viewers to do this for free without remuneration for spending tens of hours, or on a big project like that, it would be hundreds of hours of work.
Well, I hope they all go on to find lucrative ways to use this ability because it's an amazing ability.
Absolutely. If only we could get some Bigelow type funding out there, a few $1 million to look at the UAP, some of the UAP projects properly. I'm sure remote viewing could be an amazing tool to really hone in on some really hardcore data and get that published. But again, the funding's just not there right now.
Well, why isn't the funding there for these cool things? I mean, those psychic
Well,
abilities. Come
I think
on.
it's I think it's definitely there in private. I do believe that the evidence that I've seen over the last 2 years indicates that there are still intelligence and secret remote viewing programs going on that are, in special access programs now. So it's
Gotta
not
be.
done by,
Gotta be.
yeah. So I believe they're going on. Of course, they would be well funded. Outside of that, though, there just isn't enough wealthy individuals that are willing to, put the millions into doing this. I wish there were. As I said, I know for a fact we could get hardcore data for them.
Well, Bob Bigelow is interested in consciousness. He has his consciousness studies, award that he awarded recently to
Yeah,
Jeffrey Mishlove, and so maybe his next step could be remote viewing. His
yeah,
next
yeah,
passion. Who knows?
yeah,
I hope so.
yeah. Absolutely.
Uh,
I, I I'll tell you something else on this project, which really blew me away as well. I think I told you that Susan and Brian are students of mine, and they're working training targets. They for the last 2 months they've been working a training target, and it was started on 1st of August, and it was they found out a few weeks ago, because I told them the feedback that it was the target of Göbekli Tepe, the ancient site in Turkey.
yeah.
So they started that on 1st of August. Uh, Susan's second remote viewing on that target we felt we couldn't match the data. We were like, where the hell is this data going on? Because we don't know what this is about. And now on reviewing the data she did on the 3rd of August was a whole remote viewing session about a UAP crash and a life form being found and interrogated. Now she did that on 3rd of August, but I wasn't, and again, for a different project. But coincidentally, I wasn't even approached to do an alien interview project, which actually was a UAP crash with an alien interviewing, until 1st of September by John Stewart. We didn't even know each other. So retroactively, a month, a viewer of mine, Susan, that worked both cases, a month, 2 to 3 months before, was telling me data about an alien interview crash retrieval interrogation event, before I even had the target, months before I even knew John had the target. So that fact alone just blows my mind. As I said, we couldn't match that data to the other target. We were thinking aliens, Göbekli Tepe. I mean, we were thinking, yeah, maybe ancient astronauts, but we're gonna have to put that data to one side. We don't know how that fits. And then now this target come across, and I didn't think about it until afterwards. But then Susan came to me and said, "I wonder if my data from 3 months ago matches this," and it matches it perfect. But as I said, I didn't even know the client, for 2 months after she did the RV session. So that's mind blowing and an interesting kind of coincidental piece of data as well, showing again that remote viewing can go anywhere in time and space. Time doesn't exist.
Yeah, it's so weird how remote viewing sessions can be kind of hijacked by something else. I was doing a session with
Yeah.
Anita on the Langley Air Force Base UFOs, and it got hijacked by the Nazca mummies. And because I was thinking,
Again, more luminous. Yeah, the subcon the RV is not perfect, you see, and it's almost like, and I've talked about this a lot. I've done a couple of presentations this last week for IRVA, where I'm kind of talking that I'm starting to believe from the last few years of experience that I'm having that the actual remote viewing process itself, within me anyway, is actually conscious, or it actually feels like it's alive and it has its own consciousness. Um, and it's not me that's making it change and adapt and do these kind of things. It's almost like it has its own character and consciousness, and sometimes it has this kind of trickster effect. It likes to play tricks on us. It likes to have a little bit of fun time. Sometimes it's a bit like an angel and a devil kind of on your shoulders, playing with you kind of thing. I truly believe that's what's happening with this. That because it's alive and conscious, you try to go out as a remote viewer and say, I want to look at target A over here. but your conscious, the RV process is like, oh, that's really boring. I'm going over here instead. This is way more interesting. And I truly believe there's some kind of live. It's weird to say. It almost feels like a live, living entity in itself.
Yeah, that's what Anita would say. She would say, RV is telling me,
Yes.
this is what it wants me to know. And is there an intelligence?
Well, I don't. Yeah. Does it have its own? I mean, as I was saying earlier, I'm finding that non-physical things, like when I'm looking at cryptos, I'm finding that each crypto has its own consciousness, so it has its
What?
own identity and
What?
character. Um,
A crypto has its own consciousness?
yeah, I'd love to be able to show you the sessions on this. It's probably a different story. I'd have to different interview. I'd have to get them out. But for example, I looked at a crypto 6 months ago, and I thought I just had the inkling one day, why not let's look and see the crypto's consciousness? So I decided to do this, and I started talking about how it felt like it was a dog, it was yapping, felt like a puppy, it was all excited. And the crypto itself, I found out afterwards, was one called Dogecoin, and the logo for it is a dog, is a puppy, it's a meme coin. So yeah, I'm finding that cryptos have consciousness, um, even though they don't physically exist. So maybe RV, maybe we're all right and we don't realize it, but RV, we embed its own, it starts growing its own consciousness as a bit like a tulpa. If you've heard
Yeah,
about how people can
yeah.
create those, maybe we as remote viewers, because we spend so much time interacting with our own RV process. I mean, mine's been 29 years. Maybe we do embed it with a consciousness over time.
So not only does RV itself as a general concept have a consciousness, you're talking about individual relationship with RV could develop a
Yes.
consciousness.
Yes, I think there's a larger universal consciousness, call it what you want, God or etheric, whatever you want. But then I think that it's quite possible that each remote viewer, as he works with his own internal processes, creates a sentient conscious process that works with him, a living entity thing as well.
Hey man, I don't doubt it. The universe is so weird, dude. The universe is so
Absolutely.
weird.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me, Daz. I love it. This was amazing. Tell us
Great
where we
chat.
can find you and what websites we can go to define more of your amazing work and your team's work. Yeah, how can people find you?
Yeah, the best ways is the YouTube channel remoteview.com, and hundreds of hours of videos on there, interviews, all kinds of stuff. And also, I run the other group, the Hellfire Club as well. You can just type that in, Hellfire or Club RV. I to be honest, I don't even know what the URL is for that, but that's on YouTube and it's out there as well. And we do amazing esoteric projects only on that site as well.
Okay, cool, man. Thank you so much for joining me, and I can't wait to have you back.
Yeah, love to chat again. Awesome.